Okay, everybody, so this is something I have wanted to do for a while, but because of our squished class time, I haven't had an opportunity, and I'm going to be trying to do this now. So what I'm going to be doing is giving you a little bit of background for lesson 5 of your classical roots. So if you want to go ahead and turn to page 27 in your classical roots, we're going to talk about that a little bit. So the theme of lesson 5 and 6 is more or less. So there's actually a word there on the top, and I can't read it. It's in Latin that says satis eloquentine sapienti parum. I can't read that. But what it means is enough eloquence, too little wisdom. Okay? And what does that actually mean? Enough eloquence, too little wisdom. I want you to think about that for a second. What that actually means is skillful speakers may sound great with their eloquent delivery, but what they say may still not make sense. So if you can use all these big words, it's fantastic, but if we don't understand what you're saying, there's still a problem. Satis, S-A-T-I-S, is a Latin root that means enough, and it is one of the roots covered in lesson 5. This ties with the more or less theme by suggesting that sometimes more eloquence, more wordiness, covers up less wisdom. If you have somebody who's kind of trying to say all these fancy words, okay? So let's preview the familiar words that you might see on here. Microorganism, microscope, microphone, minus, diminish, and minute, right? Those are probably all words that you are actually familiar with on here. And so, of course, microorganism is something that's very small. It's so small it can't be seen with the naked eye. To get a good look at a microorganism, you would use a microscope. And then, of course, a microphone for a small voice projects it and makes it loud. So what shared meaning is in all of these words? Micro, the shared meaning would be small. So now we've got the words min. Okay, we've got the word min, and we've got some words that are probably familiar to you. Minus, diminish, and minute. And in math, what does minus mean? It means to take away or subtract. And when you diminish something, you subtract from it. So let's say you had a performance and it was super great, and I was like, meh, it was okay. I've diminished your performance. I have diminished from it. And then minute, that word there that you see can actually be pronounced in 2 ways. You can pronounce it minute, which is very small, or minute, which you guys are probably more familiar with. So either of those 2 things is a way that you can pronounce that. So a small apple would be a minute fruit. A small underground part of a plant would be a minute root. Hey, boys, yes. Would you please call Dad back on FaceTime real quick? He's trying to call me, and I'm in the middle of the video. So if you could just step in my room and do that. A small underground part of a plant is a minute root. A small horn would be a minute flute. A small cowboy shoe would be a minute boot, etc. So the familiar words indicate that both micro and min suggest meanings connected with small, tiny, or less. Okay? They all do that. So the Greek root micros means small. The Latin root minor, minor, all of those mean less. And the Latin root tenuo means to make thin or meaning thin, okay? And so you see some words there, attenuate and tenuous, okay? Attenuate is to make slender or small. Tenuous is thin in form or flimsy, having little substance or validity. And you can actually say that. Some students have a tenuous grasp of economics, not a strong grasp. And so, and then we've also got the words here, satiate, right? Which satiate means to satisfy an appetite fully, to gratify to excess. So during our stay in Italy, we satiated ourselves on art, opera, and pasta. So it doesn't actually have to be food, right, that you satiate yourself on. And then we also have the Latin words here, implio, implere, implevi, impletum. And some of the words that go with that, all of those means to fill or full. Comply, implement, replete, and expletive. Replete is one that we don't use that often, I feel like, and it means well stocked or abundantly supplied. So you could say, I like a novel replete with suspense and danger, filled up, okay? An implement is one that you guys have probably used quite a bit. It's some sort of tool or utensil. And then to comply, right? You comply with something. You have compliance. You are compliant. All of those are some of the words as well. I wanted to just quickly tell you that which of these words would be considered nouns. So you could have implements for cooking. You could have organisms called microbes, which would actually be a thing. Remember, a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. You could have minutia in your house. You could find a microcosm of a school, right? So for example, a whole school, and then a microcosm would be one classroom. It's sort of representative of the whole school. And then of course an expletive is a thing, right? It's a cuss word. Angry people come out with bad words. In comic strips, you'll see like all the funky symbols. I'm sure you guys have seen or used those when you're texting, right? For bad words. So now we've got some words that are adjectives or verbs. Okay. So, minuscule is tiny. Tenuous is weak. Replete, complete. Satiated is full. Attenuate is to lessen. Comply is to obey. Those are all either a verb or an adjective. Remember, a verb is an action. Okay, so comply would be an action. That would be a verb. And an adjective is something that describes a noun. So if we're talking about your knowledge and it's tenuous, that's an adjective describing your knowledge. Okay, so I'm now looking at assigning you, right? Assigning you to complete pages 30 through 32 of lesson 5. So if you can go ahead and do that, see page 89. I don't know why it's giving me these other, there's a practice. There's a little practice thing for activities. So I'm not gonna have you guys do that. You can go ahead and do lesson 5 and then submit it to me online.